Hi everyone and welcome to another video. I'm here in my backyard workshop because I want to discuss a technical element, the bike dimensions, the geometry of the bike and what is relevant to you and me when either deciding what bike to choose and what setup for the best performance, whether you are looking for comfort or the maximum power on your road bike. And to do so, I am going to be helped by my assistant there, and also not one but two Ryden Bikes geometry tools that are essential to replicate the dimensions from one bike to another. And I've been using this quite a lot, and I've just been sent the second one from Ryden Bikes, which is really useful and an upgrade from the original one that I already reviewed. Sorry, what are these drops? I understand. August has been identifying as November, so hence the weather is a bit odd. Yes, it's all clear now. Anyway, let's hope that the weather doesn't get worse. Before going into the actual bike dimension and geometry, it's important to identify what road bike are we talking about and the main differences between an endurance oriented road bike and a race bike. I would say these are the most common categories, whether you buy a bike that is more comfortable or whether you buy a bike that is designed for the full performance and to get you as fast as possible on the road. Generally, you will have an endurance bike where you have this section here in the front of the bike quite tall. Sometimes you do have also spaces on top of the steer tube here, and the angle of the seat post is a bit slacker to put you in more upright position when you ride. While race bike and aero bike, which usually have a similar geometry, they have a slightly lower front end, a steeper seat tube to put you in a more aggressive position. If we look at our assistant here, you can't imagine a road bike where only the front end goes down, because it would be almost impossible to cycle from this position. So whether the endurance bike will give you a more upright position, everything will be adjusted accordingly. So the position of the cranks and the position of the saddle, the height of the handlebars, maybe a shorter reach. The more upright you are, the shorter the reach for the front end. While if you want to go in a race position, you will be not just bending forward with the torso, but you will rotate also your pelvis closer to the bottom bracket, and inevitably you will be pedaling a slightly different angle for your knees. The reach will be longer to accommodate a more forward position, more aerodynamic and more efficient if you want to pedal faster. And to me, the most important thing is to be honest with the intended use of the bike that you want to have. I would recommend an endurance bike with a more comfortable riding position, a more upright position, to someone that want to achieve an average road speed around the 25-26 kilometers per hour. So for a longer run where speed is not paramount, is not your main target, and you want to enjoy a longer ride in a more comfortable position. However, if you want to go faster, if your group is trying to achieve a faster average speed, anything above 27 kilometers per hour, going to the 28, 29, 30 kilometers per hour, I would suggest you to go for a race bike, because a more forward position, more aerodynamic position for you will be much easier to achieve those speed. Because yes, the more upright you are, the more air will try to stop going forward, and it will be much harder to get to those speed if you ride in an upright position, offer so much resistance to the wind. However, if you are riding in a more aggressive position, your head tube lower, naturally the body position forward, longer reach, more penetration to the air, it would be much easier for you to achieve that speed, although yes, with the penalty of a more uncomfortable position on the bike. Every manufacturer will list what they consider to be their race bike and their endurance bike, so it would be easy for you to focus the attention to your specific model. The next step would be finding the right size for you, and sometimes it's harder than what it should be. In the ideal scenario, you will go to a bike fitter, you will get measured, and based on your desired type of bike, they will suggest you the dimensions that you will need to go for. However, it's not that common for this to happen because the bike fit is quite a big investment at first, when maybe you haven't even decided whether road biking is the sport for you, and usually your first bike is just bought either in a shop or through the internet. And in this case, you have to do your homework, and you have to do your homework right before buying a bike. So I would say it's a bit of your responsibility if you ended up buying the wrong size. Most of the time, the sizing recommendations of the manufacturers are spot on, but maybe the name of the bike, so some manufacturer will call a bike a medium when it's a 56, some will call it a 54. So those numbers and letters sometimes don't mean anything, but I would really strongly suggest for you to go with their advice. Canyon recommends large in the Ultimate for my size. I can pull the dimensions of this Ultimate and compare to all other bikes I would want to buy, and then I can see whether other manufacturers' advice compare to Canyon's recommendations, or sometimes manufacturers that don't even listen a recommendation based on your height and your inseam, and I can see what the discrepancies are between the frames. Yes, I do find quite annoying that some manufacturers, especially the high-end one, do not offer a recommendation based on your body on their sizing. And yes, I guess it's done for you to go and buy a bike from the shop, but I find it really, really unhelpful. Lots of other manufacturers like Giant, Canyon, Merida, they do offer quite good tables or tools, calculators, for you to really check based on your sizes what bikes they recommend. And even if you are then in the market for a different bike, check all the manufacturers what the recommendations are, and based on the recommendations what the inherent sizes of the bikes that you will compare with the others that you want to look for. In terms of the important sizing that I look for when I compare different bikes, the first one of course would need to be the top tube, or what is now called the effective top tube. Yes, because when bikes used to have a horizontal top tube, the length of that top tube used to be considered more or less the size of the bike. So you will hear saying, oh, this is a 56, 58, usually refers to this distance. But then when bikes started to have sloping tubes, the effective top tube will take into consideration the horizontal line, and sometimes might fall on the actual seat post rather than on the frame of the bike. Now, the top tube itself might not give you the full perception of how the bike is built, and two other good measures are the stack and reach. We'll show you the front end of the bike. So usually the stack is between the bottom bracket and the head tube, the horizontal line of the head tube, so more or less this sizing, while the reach is from the perpendicular of the bottom bracket and the head tube. So this would be the reach of the bike. These are very good measure to understand between bikes how tall or low would be the head tube, so how aggressive or less aggressive would be a bike from the front end, and also the reach, how long or short will be from the bottom bracket. However, this measurement will be giving you maybe only half of the picture, because the second very, very important measurement is the seat angle, because what happens behind the bottom bracket is as important as what happens in front of it. And this is quite relevant to the two bikes I have, because funny enough, these two bikes have the exact same front end in terms of stack and reach, so you could assume they are very similar. However, the Velobuild Because the angle of the seat tube is slacker, so it's a bit more relaxed, we'll position the rider a little bit backwards compared to the bottom bracket, while the canyon will have a slightly steeper tube angle and will position the rider in a more aggressive position. If you look at these two bikes, the saddle on the canyon seems almost centered with the seat post, while the saddle on the Velobuild is pushed all the way forward, almost at the end of the reach for the seat post, to put me in the exact same position. And this is down to the slightly different geometry, so this is an element very important, the angle of the seat tube, that you need to consider, because it will have a major effect on the way you ride the bike. As you may have seen lately, a lot of pro riders tend to push the saddle forward and usually using a bike that is actually smaller than the normal size, maybe to get the seat post even forward towards the bottom bracket, push the saddle even further and using a longer stem to adjust the reach. So in essence they go rotating forward, and as you can see, a smaller bike will put you forward naturally towards the bottom bracket, and again a longer reach is managed with the longer stem, like 13 or 14 centimeters. And in this case, maybe the Velobuild, I could have chosen a smaller size, push the saddle forward and go for an even longer stem to get better in a more forward position in a more efficient way. And to match the position between the two bikes, this Ryden tool is extremely valuable. Yes, because it measures the saddle height based on the specific width of your saddle, so if you do run the same saddle, you will be exactly measuring the height of the same position. At the same time, using the angle tool of your mobile phone, with its application will also give you the angle and the distance of the saddle between the bottom bracket, including the distance between the saddle and the bottom bracket in the height and in length. So in this case you can mirror not only the saddle height, but where the saddle is in comparison to the bottom bracket, because at the end what is important for you is how to push the pedals, and depending where you are comparing to the BB is massively important. There are of course other considerations in terms of the handling of the bike, the inherent design of the fork, the rake, how the bike will be more agile or more stable at speed, but usually modern road bikes are very similar, something that I will not really stress out too much. So you will find small differences that I believe that you can live with. When comparing bikes, yes, check the stack and reach to understand whether your bike is a more aggressive or not. However, don't forget to check the seat post angle, the effective toe tube, to find out between bikes which one is going to give you the best position for your intended use. Within sizing, check all the manufacturers, check their recommended sizes and see what dimensions those bikes are. You will see a trend, trying to understand for you what are the best dimensions that you can look for. I think these are the most useful consideration regarding sizing and geometry on the bikes. Let me know your experience, if you found different ways of understanding what sizes are better for you, and let me know in the comments, because I will want to hear and discuss with you. As usual, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you to the next video. Ciao!